This is why we must all commend President Trump's decisive actions against anti-Semitism, and we must pressure other governments to do the same.
Is the United States government now just taking edicts and orders from Israel? Is this what people voted for when they elected Trump, is to have a country taking orders from Israel? I don't think so.
You just heard from Tim Dillon, who isn't some lefty. And it is pretty clear that Israel is calling the shots in the United States as students have their visas and green cards revoked and are getting arrested simply for expressing criticism of how Israel is prosecuting the war in Gaza. And you don't have to take it from me. In fact, take it from Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
These ignorant demonstrators, who are they demonstrating for? For these murderers, these rapists, these mass killers? This is a reflection of a deep rot that has pervaded the intellectual hub of free societies. And this vilification of Israel, the Jewish people, and Western values has been propagated by a systemic alliance between the ultra-progressive left and radical Islam. It must be resolutely fought by civilized societies to safeguard their future. This is why we must all commend President Trump's decisive actions against anti-Semitism, and we must pressure other governments to do the same.
I'm just gonna comment briefly on what he had to say about a free society in Israel, because it reminded me of something I came across from my good friend Ben Burgess on X today. He shared a headline with the public. Let's take a look at this. Today's update from the only democracy in the Middle East: Israeli troops killed 15 Palestinian medics and buried them in a mass grave, UN says. That's just the latest.
Yeah, so first of all, Israel.
Don't protest it though, sorry.
First of all, Israel's not a democracy. You can't imprison 5.5 million people in open air prisons, murder them anytime you like, cut off their power, electricity, and food and water anytime you like, and claim you're a democracy. That's absurd, totally absurd. In no other country that enslaves 5.5 million other people gets to call themselves a democracy. So it's always been propaganda from day one. Number two, Netanyahu does so much damage to in causing anti-Semitism throughout the world. He keeps conflating Israel with Jewish people across the world. Those two things are not the same thing. My friends here in America did not want to help you in your genocide and ethnic cleansing. So stop saying, and by the way, take another country. Erdogan's doing now monstrous things in Turkey and trying to end democracy there. But criticizing Erdogan doesn't mean you're criticizing me. Okay, I'm criticizing Erdogan. Doesn't mean you're criticizing Turkish people. But if we did this with every country, we drive hatred towards every set of people, because the Turkish government is at some point going to do terrible things. And I don't want people to hate Turks over it. The Israeli government is going to do terrible things, is in the middle of doing terrible things. You shouldn't hate Jewish people over it. But Netanyahu is constantly trying to confuse you on that, right? Oh, my government equals all Jewish people. So that's because he doesn't want his government criticized, right? But in reality, he's doing massive damage to Jews across the world by equating them with one of the most monstrous governments we've had in our lifetime. No, Dick Cheney does not represent all of America, and Netanyahu does not represent all Jewish people in the world. Now, but look at what he does, man. This guy's a trope machine, right? As people are worried about anti-Semitism, he's like, now we will pressure all the governments to follow my orders. How does that help? And I'm glad that Donald Trump has been walked around like a dog. I gave him a little biscuit and a treat, and he did exactly as I ordered him. Now I will order Germany and France and other countries to do exactly as I said. But don't believe in an anti-Semitic trope about how I control the world. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Don't do the trope. And by the way, they don't. Do they control Indonesia? No, they don't. Do they control Norway and other countries? No. Ireland? No. Ireland's an open revolt against Israel. So the trope is not true, but Netanyahu is trying to make it appear like it's true, right?
Let's hold on. I think it's really, really important to differentiate between Jewish people, okay, and the Israeli government, okay? Jewish people do not control the world. That is the trope, and it's a disgusting trope. The government of Israel controls the United States.
Yes, that's definitely true.
It does. No, let's just keep it real. I mean, come on. We're literally, by the way, how many students at this point? Obviously, Mahmoud Khalil was the first student who was arrested, sent away. No one even knew which detention center for some days until we finally figured out where he was. That he was just the first one. There's also Ali Reza Daroudi. He is an Iranian student. There isn't even any evidence of him engaging in any protest against Israel's war against Gaza.
And then there's Öztürk, who's a Turkish American. Sorry, she's not American. She's on a student visa.
Yes.
That was in Boston.
Yes.
And she's working on her PhD. She did an op-ed talking about economic boycott of Israel. They're like, that's it, you're under arrest and you're gonna get deported.
That's crazy. Okay, that's
for an op-ed?
That is supposed to go against our values as Americans. Okay, these students didn't engage in terrorism, they didn't harass Jewish students. There's no evidence of that. They simply stated their opinion. And in the case of Öztürk, she was a co-author in an op-ed for the student paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's over there. Netanyahu's over there bragging about how they managed to get this accomplished, and they want to go further. And let's not forget what he mentioned about this alliance among the progressive left and radical Islam. What?
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second. So one last thing about Israel controlling countries. Does Saudi Arabia and UAE partly control America through their funding of think tanks, lobbyist groups, et cetera, and the way that they funnel money to both parties? Yes, it's not just Israel, okay? But does Israel have significant and massive control over the American government through donations that are legal here in America? People who love Israel, they're American citizens, presumably, almost we think, as far as I know, let's put it that way, they all give and they go, now I want you to support Israel, okay? And I don't want any questions, I don't want any nuance. My group, AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, et cetera, and they're definitely not supporting Jewish Americans. They've actually targeted some Jewish members of Congress, and 70% of Democrats, Jewish Americans, by the way, voted against Trump. Okay, so, but what they are saying is now we support the Israeli right wing. And if you dogs that we give money to, like the drug companies do, oil companies do, et cetera, if you dogs don't behave, we will take away your treats. And almost 98% of the Republican Party and a huge percent, like 60% at a bare minimum of the Democratic Party go, absolutely, sir. Who do you want me to bow to? Netanyahu? Oh, standing ovation after standing ovation. You want to commit more war crimes, blank check after blank check.
Yep.
Does Israel control Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
You'd have to be really a giant liar or enormously biased to say that they don't. You'd have to go out of your way to like twist reality to say they don't. Of course they do.
Look, this question came up, Cenk, during my appearance on Piers Morgan's show last week, right? And it was really interesting because people usually can't wait to interrupt you. Piers Morgan himself can't wait to interrupt you as you are answering the question he just asked you. But no one interrupted me when I was saying what I needed to say. And so I want to go to video 5 here, and you'll get a sense of why I believe the Israeli government does have control over the American government. Take a look.
But this principle of deporting students for their political allegiances or views, where do you sit on that?
I mean, our government will certainly try to do that as long as the government of Israel demands it. And our government, whether you're talking about Democrats or Republicans, is completely controlled by the Israeli government, and they're gonna do the Israeli government's bidding. That's what this is really about. That's all it is. So protesters who are legal residents, permanent residents who have green cards will be deported simply for exercising their freedom of speech and criticizing how the Israeli government is prosecuting this war in Gaza, slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent women, children, elderly people, civilians. They're gonna continue the slaughter. They don't want any backlash from anyone in the United States about it, including American citizens, including permanent residents. And remember, Miriam Adelson and the Adelson family overall gave Donald Trump hundreds of millions of dollars to not do what's right for the United States, but to do what's right for Israel. So Donald Trump is going to do that. I mean, you think Trump is like sitting around thinking about, these students and how much he himself personally wants to deport them? No, he's doing a transaction.
Yeah,
come on.
Imagine Trump's like, I read that op-ed at Tufts.
Come on.
I want to take action on it. No, he got an order from AIPAC to deport the enemies of Israel.
And he's doing it like a good boy.
And not even enemies, like slight critics of Israel. So look, I think that clip Anna showed you is really interesting, because if Anna had said that on CNN just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? She would have been escorted out of the building. The host would have jumped down her throat. Every other panelist would have jumped down her throat. Now it's like, well, who would object? The right doesn't object, the left doesn't object. Any sentient human being knows that Israel controls Washington, D.C., and it's not complicated. How? Through the campaign donations.
Yeah.
It's legalized bribery, right? So, okay, along those lines, I was listening to a Club Random podcast, this Bill Maher's podcast, when Andrew Schultz was on. It's a really good podcast, by the way, in that particular episode. Andrew Schultz is an interesting cat, and he convinced Bill Maher on a couple of things that I thought were great. Anyways, but when they got to this issue, Bill, of course, as always, frothing at the mouth about Israel, right? Mahmoud Khalil's a terrible guy. He's filled with hate. Right? You don't know anything about Mahmoud Khalil, right?
Right.
But nevertheless, this is a hilarious way of me giving Bill Maher credit. Okay, nevertheless, he's like, yeah, no, we shouldn't deport him. That's crazy. Even if I hate him, even if I hate his opinions on Israel, why are we deporting someone for speech? Thank you, Bill. Thank you for not being a hypocrite and for living up to what has been your ideals on free speech for all along.
So there are actually some on the right who are condemning what's happening with these green card students who are being sent away, arrested, their green cards revoked. We're gonna get to them in just a minute, but I actually wanna go to one other video, because in this next clip, you're going to see David Friedman, who actually was Trump's ambassador to Israel in his first term. He doesn't just stop at progressives and their critique of Israel. He's also focusing on the right wing as well. And I suspect that this is waking the right wing up.
Yeah, and it's not gonna play well.
Because if you think that free speech violations are only gonna impact the left, you'd be mistaken. Take a look.
I condemn anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. I'm an equal opportunity condemner of anti-Semitism.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, none of them are any good on the right. On the left, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. But the government, the United States government, or the government of France, or the government of any other country, has the power to rein in anti-Semitism in a much more effective way. And people say, well, the governments are not in the business of changing the way people think. That's true, but to my thinking, most people who are anti-Semites, most of these people running around, we're not going to win their hearts and minds, because they don't have hearts and they don't have minds. So how are we gonna? There's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can deport them. We can put them in jail. We can make their lives miserable. We can cut off their funding, and that's what the Trump administration is doing for the first time.
Okay, now understand what he considers anti-Semitism. And by the way, you're an American citizen. If you are spewing anti-Semitic garbage, you're actually free to do that as long as you don't act on it, right? Free speech is a thing. Hate speech is protected under the First Amendment. This guy thinks that simply criticizing how Israel is prosecuting the war is already anti-Semitic. It's already anti-Semitism. And he wants to throw you in prison for it.
Yeah.
In prison for it.
And by the way, that was an answer to a question about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So we're not talking about student visas anymore.
Oh my God.
Now we're talking about core American podcasters, people in media on the right and the left. If you criticize Israel, he says, well, you have no heart and you have no mind. You have no heart because of course you should know when Israel slaughtered 15,000 children, it was the most moral thing to do. And if you dare disagree, we'll arrest you. And what did he say? Oh, we'll cut off your funding. By the way, he's like, it's anti-Semitic to say that the Jews would control speech in America. But if you dare cross Israel, we will cut off your funding, we will deport you, we will arrest you. But don't say it. If you say it, what I just said, I'm gonna call you an anti-Semite.
No, maybe I'll throw you in prison.
Okay, if you dare cross me, I will control every part of your life. But no, don't say that, don't say that. No, look, this clown does not represent all Jews in America. My friends do not control a damn thing. Okay, they would like Israel to stop. Okay, but some powerful people in this country, like him, believe that Israel is the boss of us. And that if we have the temerity to even politely disagree with Israel, then there will be severe consequences from a lobby he controls and other people like him control. But don't worry, left wing and right wing, they're equal opportunity condemners. Israel condemns America and condemns all of your media. Oh, okay, good to know, good to know.
He also said something along the lines of, it's not good enough to say you're against anti-Semitism, you have to be anti-Semitic, which is exactly what like Ibram X. Kendi would get like skewered about by the right wing, because it was, his whole argument is it's not good enough to be against racism, you have to be anti-racist, which is a separate thing. And it's just, people are calling these guys out because they're like, yeah, the right wing hates this.
Yeah.
We hate this. This is what they consider wokeism, right?
Yep,
so
100%.
With that in mind, let's now go to Tim Dillon. So he's a comedian, if you're not familiar with him, he is not a lefty, but he's not really liking what's happening right now with the targeting of these students. So let's take a look at what he had to say.
I didn't vote on letting any of these people into the country. No one did, by the way. But I'm certainly not for removing people that have a differing opinion. That is free speech. I don't think that's the right way to go. But let's watch this disappearance.
Ma'am, you got
Is this being done for America or for Israel? I mean, this is a fair question. Is the United States government now just taking edicts and orders from Israel? I think it's a fair question to ask. Does anyone feel safer with this woman off the streets? Is this the American government's? Is this what people voted for when they elected Trump, is to have a country taking orders from Israel? I don't think so. She's a legal US resident. She participated in pro-Palestinian protests as a legal US resident. Her arrest follows the White House's crackdown on what is classified as anti-Semitism on US campuses. What is this? And does anyone feel uncomfortable with this?
Yeah, I feel deeply uncomfortable with this. And I'm happy to see that it's not just lefties who feel uncomfortable with it. You also have people like Eli Lake. Eli Lake is a big defender of Israel, has spoken out against what's happening to these students. I give him a lot of credit for that. Dave Smith, of course, has been speaking out against this. He's a libertarian. So more and more people who are Trump supporters are coming out and saying, no, this is not okay. This goes against our values. And I commend them for that, because there's a lot of free speech warriors out there that ain't really about free speech when it's inconvenient for them.
Yeah, I literally don't know a single Jewish American that is in favor of these kidnappings. Okay, so like, this isn't to serve Jews. This isn't to fight anti-Semitism. This is to serve a lobby that is for a foreign government. And so the fact that comedians and right-wingers, et cetera, are all waking up going, wait, what did she do against America?
Right.
Nothing.
Or
right.
What does she do against Israel? You're not allowed to have an opinion about a foreign country, really?
Well, apparently in America, you could be an exchange student, you could be a green card holder, resident alien that's legally here. You could have any vicious opinion you like about America or white people or black people, or, by the way, ironically, of Jews. You could say any anti-Semitic thing you like, but if you say something against Israel, you're gonna be taken out. Okay, and look, last couple of things here. We had this hilarious poll. Does Netanyahu have too much influence in the United States? I'm just curious. It's in the live chat. Shows at 6 o'clock every day. 5% believe no. Nope. What influence Netanyahu? But anyway, 95.5. That's not surprising. Last thing is, if you notice there, the topic I wanted to come back to, Netanyahu started saying now the left in America equals radical Islam. So that we're terrorists, right? So now the left has to get locked up. And he didn't say student visa, he didn't say green card. He just left equals radical Islam. So now if you're on the left, you better watch yourself, because the Israeli thought police might just arrest you if Netanyahu gets his way. But as you saw with Friedman, they're saying, well, we start with the left, but we're equal opportunity condemners.
Yeah.
So Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else, you start slightly criticizing Israel. We got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the US government. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.